Hey guys, welcome back. You got to ask yourself this question if you're in the business of building wealth and having a financial future. Are you someone who likes to live day to day, or are you someone who likes to plan for the future? Let's get into it. Isn't this beautiful, guys? I love this kind of weather in Michigan. Blue skies, snow on the trees, you gotta love it. So this morning, I was talking to my son. He's very time sensitive, okay? He likes to talk about time because he likes to have a lot of it, okay? He's always talking about how time goes by way too fast on the weekends, and he's got to go back to school, right? On Monday, he gets all upset that he can't play with his toys. He's 7 years old, mind you. You know, he likes to play with toys. He's not a tablet kid by any means. Neither is my daughter, fortunately. And I enjoy it. I love sitting there watching my child play with toys, okay? But he's time sensitive, all right? He's always talking about time, and it's kind of interesting. At 7 years old, to be contemplating time like this, I think it's an interesting quality that maybe not everyone has out there. I know my wife, she isn't all about time either. She's more of a day-to-day kind of person. Same thing with my daughter, more of a day-to-day, you know, living life as it comes by. But for me and my son, we're more about thinking about the future, and time is our enemy, guys. It really is. Now, what's interesting about what my son was talking about was he was talking about Christmas vacation, which is coming up here in about 3 weeks. And he was asking me on the way to school, he's like, "Dad, what day is Christmas Day, and how many days do I have until I have to go back to school?" And I start counting it out, working out the time with him. And I said, I think it's around 7 to 9 days. And he was like super excited about that. He was like, "I get to play with my toys for 9 days straight." I'm like, "Yep, you'll enjoy that quite a bit." And this is another reason why I didn't go on vacation, okay? We're gonna stay at home so he can play with his toys and we can be a family, That I digress. So he's contemplating this, and then he says to me, "Dad, I think I'm gonna make my lunches and get my clothes out the day I start vacation so that I have the last day to play with toys more." And I thought, are you serious? He's really thinking that far ahead? So just to give you a background, is every Sunday, if you don't know, my family, we always prep for the week for school, okay? We always set out our outfits, 5 days worth. I don't, but my kids do, okay? Because we're early in the morning, you don't want to have to deal with that. And then we do 5 days worth of lunches, school lunches. So they pack their lunches on Sunday, and they get their clothes ready on Sunday for the week. And so my son is thinking ahead all the way to like January 4th, that Sunday. He knows that based on his schedule, he's going to have to get his outfits out and get his snacks out. And so he said, "Dad, on Friday, the day we get out of school, I want to prep my clothes and prep my lunches so that Sunday I can play with my toys and I can benefit from my planning." And the same thing applies, guys, when it comes to building wealth, okay? The people who think ahead, whether it's 1 week, whether it's 1 month or 1 year, or dare I say 10 years, are the ones who are going to benefit, just like my son, okay? My son's going to get that extra little day on Sunday if he plans accordingly and actually lays out his outfits. I wouldn't be surprised if he does it. He's going to ask his mom if he can. But just like my son, the people who plan ahead and save for the future, they're the winners beyond the day-to-day. They're going to be the ones sipping the Mai Tais in their late 50s and 60s. And they're the ones who aren't going to stress out, let's say in their mid-40s when they get laid off. Because the reality is, you get laid off in your mid-40s, 50s, and 60s because of ageism, guys. It's a reality we all have to contend with. You think today that you're in your 30s and you're in your 20s, everything will be fine, right? Nothing's going to happen. But everything happens, guys. Technology improves. The young people who are coming up against you, they're going to be better than you. They're going to be smarter than you. They're going to know all the latest tech. Like today, You know, I don't know all this latest AI tech, data scientist stuff. That's what these young bucks are doing. They're coming in, taking my job, essentially. You know, I'm an old school software engineer. I already know my days are numbered. You know, I mean, today I'm more of like on the experience level. I can give guidance and wisdom for people at my workplace to say, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. This might be a problem. You know, I mean, typically in your late 40s and 50s, you hopefully would have that experience that they would keep you around, but it's not guaranteed, you know? And so the planners, when you plan in your 20s and 30s, you're gonna be setting yourself up for success in your mid 40s, early 50s, late 50s, you know, so that you can have that freedom and that you can have a lack of stress in your late years, you know. I just think that the planning part, a lot of people miss out in their 20s and 30s. They just do not think of time like my son does or like I do. I've always thought in my 20s, I'm like, I'm gonna be 40. It's gonna be around the corner. And I don't wanna have to stress about money or stress about just things in general. You know, money, I'm telling you what, a lot of people say, oh, money's not everything. I get all that, but it is. Okay, it gives you this time freedom that you can't get back. And the time goes by faster and faster and faster the older you get. So you got to think about these things. You know, you got to think about the future if you want to build wealth, if you want to pass down generational wealth, you know, and, you know, it doesn't have to be in the form of monetary stuff. You know, you can talk to your kids about the future as well, their future. Oh, you might want to think about college. That's another way to think about things. You know, you start talking to your kids about college when they're in 6th grade. I talk to my kids all the time about this. I talk to my kids about them driving when they're 16 years old. I did it to my daughter today. This week I had some flat tires, or I had to replace tires, and I was talking to her about changing a tire and the fact that in 5 years she's going to drive. So I said to her, hey, you got to think about these things, okay? That's why you got to learn how to change a tire maybe at the age of 10, 12, 13, because you got to prepare for the future. I don't know. I've just always been a person who plans for the future. I like living day to day. Don't get me wrong, but I'm always constantly thinking in my head about the future, just like my son is. So I'm pretty proud of my son. Him thinking that way at 7 years old, I mean, just think about what he's going to think about when he's in his 20s. He's going to be thinking just like I am. He's going to be thinking, man, I want to be a millionaire at 40, Dad. Or I want to be a millionaire at 30. How do I get there, right? And maybe he's like 20 years old. I'm going to say, man, you better get to work. You know, you better pile your money into the stock market week after week after week. That's how you're going to get there, son. And that's what I'm going to tell him. Now, my daughter, you know, I don't know if she'll listen too much. She's more of a day-to-day kind of person, which is fine. I think when it comes to two people, there can be a good balance as well. I think there can be one person that lives day-to-day that kind of thinks, oh, I got to get everything done for the day. But I think you always got to have one other person that's thinking about the future, you know. And if you got two of you thinking about the future, you just might not be living day-to-day. So, you know. And if you got two people thinking about day-to-day, nothing's going to be set up for the future. So I think a good balance might help most families out, especially even raising kids. Honestly, I talk about the future more than my wife does with my kids. And that way, at least I've got them positioned, okay, for success when they get older. And my wife is positioning my kids for the day-to-day, you know, getting their schoolwork done. That has to happen too. So I think that you can have the best of both worlds, guys. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you guys like the channel, like and subscribe. And take a look at my previous video, if you could. And everyone have a great day. Later.